with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the second segment. So again, this news sort of broke directly after the Dolphins ended up losing to the Jets. Now Tyreek Hill, he said this in a post-game conference. He said that he wanted to go out, like he's a competitor, and being in Miami was not the best thing for his career. That's what he said, and I will say it is a little bit odd seeing this come, like it's too much of a coincidence that he's having the absolute worst year of his career and now he wants out. Now, I'm not going to say he's that much of a diva, but it is a little bit self-centered. I mean, imagine it. This guy was voted as the best player in the entire NFL amongst his peers. And I don't even think he's going to be a top 50 NFL player. And he definitely wasn't playing like a top 50 NFL player. Like, Malik Neighbors is better than him this season. And that's not just, I'm not saying that just for like, because I'm a fan of the Giants and Malik Neighbors is probably the best player on the Giants. But I'm saying this because the numbers prove it already. Like, this is a really bad year for Tyreek Hill. A really bad year. And I knew that the reason why Tyreek wanted to play on Miami was literally for it was all for the money. There was absolutely no reason why he wanted to play for Miami, aside from the fact that he wanted the money. I mean, his stats this season, 959 yards. He wasn't able to crack 1,000 receiving yards. He averaged 56 yards per game compared to last season where he averaged 112 yards per game. He only had 6 touchdown catches compared to last season where he had 13. And just overall, he has been terrible this year, like absolutely terrible. He's had 123 targets, only receiving 81 of those targets. But again, this is one of the fewest amount of targets that he's had since 2019 on Kansas City. And even then, he was still a Pro Bowler. But this season has been terrible for Tyreek. It's been bad. And he wants out. I think, personally, part of the reason why he wants out is because he knows he's not going to win any major playoff games with Tua Tagovailoa. Now, I will say that Tua was not really playing all of that much in the regular season. He did have some concussions, so it's a little bit unfair to say that. But again, that is also part of it because as a receiver, if you're going to be playing with a quarterback that is injured for most of the time and you don't have competent quarterbacks, you're not going to be all that happy. Now, we have Malik Neighbors, who played with 4 different starting quarterbacks. All of them are not great, and in fact, all of them are barely good. And he was still able to get his targets. He was still able to accumulate numbers and things like that, which is understandable. I get that. But this is Tyreek Hill we're talking about. Like, the fact that this guy was unable to do that, it seems very odd. It seems weird. Like, it's uncharacteristic for me to talk about Tyreek Hill as if he was, like, regressing, which I don't think he is. I genuinely don't think he's regressing. I just think this was an off year where he had to deal with several different quarterbacks. Because remember, he usually, for the most part of his career, he's only had to deal with one quarterback. For the most part, like, they stay relatively healthy. And being able to adapt is not really something that I think Tyreek Hill is used to, at least in the quarterback situation. Now, I think he's also realized that playing with Tua Tagovailoa is not going to be enough for his career. And obviously, this move to Miami, since the beginning, was money motivated. There was but one thing that really, like, aggravated me was that Tyreek Hill was trying to hype up Tua to be, like, on par with Patrick Mahomes. He was saying that Tua Tagovailoa was more accurate than Patrick. And everyone knew that was just a flat-out lie. Everybody, even probably players on the Dolphins, knew that that was a flat-out lie because Tua would underthrow Tyreek Hill so much. He's probably going to go back to Kansas City. I wouldn't be surprised, but again, with the contract that he has, I don't think Kansas City is willing to pay for all that much. But it's not looking good for Tyreek. And the teams that are most likely going to be interested in him they're probably going to second guess themselves, knowing that they're going to have to pay him all of that money, and considering how he's literally coming off the worst season of his entire career, teams are now most likely going to be less likely to want to pay Tyreek Hill all of that money. I mean, I personally would not want to pay Tyreek Hill all the money that he's making right now. Like the Niners, they're going to have to pay Brock Purdy, so I don't think they're a team that's going to that's going to be interested in him. The Cowboys, they're paying Dak Prescott all that money. I don't think that the Cowboys will want to get him. And even if his contract was a little bit cheaper, Jerry wouldn't want him either. Any other teams that could be in the running for him are most likely going to be wanting to shop for a solid quarterback more so than they're going to want to shop for a wide receiver now, considering how Tyreek Hill played. Could the Jets get him? I don't know. Maybe they could, but I don't see that happening at all. I genuinely don't. And really the biggest problem is whether or not Tyreek Hill is going to be able to produce like he was able to a year ago and be the best player that his peers thought that he was a year ago. That's really the big problem with this, with Tyreek Hill wanting to get traded. And he's already requested a trade, and he already put on his, I think it was his Twitter logo. Remember when Antonio Brown, he took off his Tampa Bay gear and started walking out of the Jets arena? I remember that. He posted a picture of that with his face cropped onto Antonio Brown's face. So clearly, I mean, I will say this. I like the fact that he wants to leave Miami. I like it because he is right. Limiting himself with a quarterback like Tua Tagovailoa is not something that he deserves. And a lot of people, they really, really question why he left the Chiefs and why he left a perfectly fine contending team, and everyone knew it was for the money. But at the end of the day, we can't really understand why he would leave for all of that money, because the way that we see it, these NFL players are making all that money regardless, and they're making way more money than any of us are, and it's like, it's the perspective that should matter, and Tyreek wanted all that money, and granted, he has a lot of kids, so I think it makes total sense why he moved to Miami, so he could get the money, because geez, I don't even want to get into that, but having all those kids, you need to make the big bucks if you want to provide for all of them. But that's all that I have in this second segment, and now we're going to continue on into the third segment where I talk about Jimmy Butler and his situation with Miami and what's going on over there. So I'll be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.